The white lace of Amara's wedding gown trailed behind her as she stood frozen at the entrance of the Grand Pavilion Ballroom in Victoria Island, Lagos. Through the half-open door, she could hear her fiancé's voice, loud, mocking, cruel. "You see those people sitting on the bride's side? Look at them. My soon-to-be wife's family, farmers and petty traders. I'm doing charity work marrying into that poverty." Laughter erupted from his groomsmen. Chitty's voice rose again. "But Amara's beautiful enough to overlook where she comes from. Besides, after today, she'll forget she ever lived in that dirty village." Amara's heart shattered like glass hitting concrete. Her fingers trembled, crushing the bouquet of white roses. Behind her, her maid of honor, Ngozi, gasped. "Amara, did he just—" But Amara was already moving, her mind a whirlwind of rage and humiliation. 3 years of love, sacrifice, and planning, destroyed in 30 seconds. What would you do if you walked in on this? Hit like if you've been betrayed, and comment below where you're watching from. She pushed through the door. The room fell silent. 200 guests turned to stare. Her family sat on the left, her mother in her best Ankara wrapper, her father in his Sunday suit, her younger siblings wide-eyed with excitement. On the right, Chitty's family dripped in expensive asoebi, their faces painted with superiority. Chitty stood at the altar in his cream agbada, his handsome face frozen mid-laugh. "Amara, my love," he started, his smooth voice attempting damage control. "I was just what?" Her voice cut through the ballroom like a machete. "Just mocking my family? Just reminding your friends that you're doing charity work?" The silence was suffocating. Amara's mother rose from her seat, confusion and hurt etched across her face. Chitty's mother, Adiz, stood too, her expensive gold jewelry glinting under the chandeliers. "Amara, my dear, let's not make a scene. Pre-wedding nerves affect everyone." "This isn't nerves." Amara's voice was steady now, powered by something deeper than anger. "This is clarity." She walked down the aisle, not toward Chitty, but toward her family. Each step echoed in the deadly quiet room. She reached her mother and took her weathered hand. "Mama, Papa, siblings, we're leaving." "Amara, wait." Chitty rushed forward, his designer shoes clicking on the marble floor. "I didn't mean it like that. You're being dramatic." She turned to face him one last time. "Dramatic? You humiliated the people who raised me with love and dignity. You insulted the hands that fed me, the arms that held me. You wanted a beautiful wife to parade around Lagos while looking down on the roots that made me strong." She pulled off her engagement ring, 3 carats, purchased with his family's oil money, and dropped it at his feet. It clinked against the marble and rolled away. "You'll regret this." Chitty's smooth mask cracked, revealing the ugliness beneath. "You're nothing without me. You'll go back to that village and rot with your poor family." Amara smiled, a cold, knowing smile that made him step back. "Watch me prove you wrong." She gathered her gown and walked out, her family following. Behind them, the ballroom erupted into chaos. Gasping guests, shouting relatives, Adiz screaming about the cost of the venue. But Amara didn't look back. Outside, the October Lagos sun blazed overhead. She had no plan, no money, no idea what came next. But she had her dignity. And that was enough to start. 3 months later, she would make Chitty wish he'd kept his mouth shut. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below. Amara sat in her childhood bedroom in Enugu, staring at the peeling paint on the walls. The room felt smaller than she remembered, or maybe she'd grown larger in her 3 years away. Her mother's voice drifted from the kitchen, the sound of pots clanging mixing with Radio Nigeria's evening broadcast. The smell of egusi soup reminded her of everything she'd tried to leave behind and everything that had saved her. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Chitty's number. She'd blocked him twice, but he kept calling from different phones. "Baby, please." It was a joke. "My mother's been crying for days. The whole of Lagos is talking. Come back. We'll reschedule." Delete. She'd stopped reading them after the 50th one. Ngozi burst through the door without knocking. She never knocked. Still hiding in here? Her maid of honor carried 2 bottles of Maltina and a bag of chin-chin. Your mother says you haven't eaten today. Not hungry. Liar. Ngozi settled onto the bed, her weight making the old springs creak. Listen, I've been doing research. You remember my cousin Ifeoma? The one who works at that tech startup in Lagos. Amara finally looked up. The one who designs websites? Yes. She's been sharing your story. Not gossiping, but like, using it as an example of women walking away from disrespect. Amara, you've become something of a folk hero. Hashtag Amara walked away is trending on Nigerian Twitter. What? Amara grabbed Ngozi's phone. Sure enough, her name was everywhere. Somebody had filmed the wedding walkout, probably a guest. The video had 500,000 views. Comments poured in, Queen behavior. This is what self-respect looks like. Chidi is trash. But other comments stung. She's too proud. Should've forgiven him. Now she'll never find another rich man. Village girl with big ego. Amara's chest tightened. They're calling me proud. Saying I ruined my only chance. Ignore them. Ngozi snatched her phone back. But here's the interesting part. Ifeoma says there's a new initiative, something called Rise Women's Fund. They're looking for women entrepreneurs with stories of resilience. They give grants, mentorship, business connections. I'm not an entrepreneur. I studied accounting. So, start something. You're smart, Amara. You graduated top of your class before you got wrapped up in Chidi's world. Ngozi leaned forward, her eyes intense. Stop being a victim. Be dangerous. The words hung in the air. Be dangerous. Amara's phone buzzed again. This time, an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her answer. Amara Okafor? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes. My name is Zainab Ibrahim. I'm the director of Rise Women's Fund. I saw your story, and I'd like to meet with you. We're hosting a pitch competition in Lagos next month. 20 women, 1 winner gets ₦1,000,000 grant and 6 months of mentorship. I think you should apply. Amara's heart raced. ₦1,000,000. 6 months of real business support. But I don't have a business. Then create one. You have 3 weeks. Think about what you're good at, what Lagos needs, what your anger can build. Zainab's voice softened. Revenge is a dish best served successful, my dear. After she hung up, Amara stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror above her dresser. Her natural hair, usually pressed straight to please Chidi, had curled back into its kinky glory. Her face, free of the expensive makeup she'd worn daily, looked younger. Freer. So, Ngozi prompted. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Chidi told me I'd rot in the village. Amara's voice was quiet, but steel ran through it. I'm thinking he needs to see me thriving in his precious Lagos. Now we're talking. Ngozi jumped up. So what's the business? Amara's mind raced through possibilities. Then it hit her, the one thing she knew intimately, the one market gap she'd noticed during her years navigating Lagos's elite circles. There are thousands of young women from rural areas moving to Lagos every year. They need job skills, professional clothing, confidence coaching, everything I needed when I first came to the city. Everything Chidi's world said they weren't good enough without. A training academy, Ngozi breathed. For rural women entering urban spaces. Exactly. From village to victory. The name came to her instantly. We teach them everything, from business English to navigating corporate culture. We partner with companies that need fresh talent. We prove that where you're from doesn't define where you're going. Ngozi grabbed her hands. This is it. This is how you win. But Amara's phone buzzed again. This time, a message that made her blood run cold. I heard about your little business idea. You think you can compete in Lagos without connections? Without money? I own this city, Amara, and I'll make sure every door stays closed to you. He'd been watching her, listening to her calls, maybe. Or someone in her circle was reporting back. He knows, Amara whispered. Then he's scared, Ngozi countered. And scared men make mistakes. Amara looked at that message for a long moment. Then she typed back, "Watch me." What she didn't know was that Chitty had already made his first call, to the chairman of the pitch competition's judging panel, his uncle. Have you ever started over after betrayal? Comment your thoughts below and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter. What do you think happens next? The next Lagos pitch competition was held in a sleek conference hall in Lekki Phase 1, all glass walls and minimalist furniture that screamed new money. Amara arrived an hour early, her portfolio clutched in sweating palms. She'd spent 3 weeks perfecting her pitch, practicing in front of her family, her old classmates, even the neighbors. Her business plan was solid, she knew it was. But as she walked into the hall, she felt the weight of judgment. 19 other women sat in clusters, most dressed in sharp blazers and designer heels. They looked polished, connected, born into Lagos's business elite. Amara wore her best outfit, a navy dress her mother had sewn from fabric bought at Ariaria Market, and suddenly felt exposed. Amara Okafor? A young woman with a clipboard approached. You're number 17. We'll call you in about 2 hours. 2 hours of waiting. 2 hours of listening to confident pitches through the thin walls. 2 hours of doubt creeping in like floodwater. Then she saw him. Chitty stood near the judge's door, talking to an older man in traditional attire, Senator Okoro, one of the judges. They laughed together, Chitty's hand on the senator's shoulder like they were old friends. Because they were. Chitty's family and Senator Okoro's family had been business partners for decades. Their eyes met across the hall. Chitty smiled, that same charming smile that had fooled her for 3 years. He said something to the senator, who glanced at Amara, then nodded. Her stomach dropped. Ngozi, who'd come as moral support, grabbed her arm. Don't react. That's what he wants. He's rigging it. Maybe. Maybe not. But your pitch is good, Amara. Really good. Trust yourself. When they finally called her name, Amara's legs felt like water. She entered the boardroom where 5 judges sat behind a long table. Senator Okoro in the center, flanked by 3 businesswomen and 1 man she didn't recognize. Zainab Ibrahim sat at the end, her expression neutral but encouraging. Ms. Okafor, Senator Okoro began, his voice dripping with false warmth. Tell us about your venture. Amara took a breath. From Village to Victory is a training academy designed to bridge the gap between rural talent and urban opportunity. Every year, thousands of young women migrate from rural Nigeria to cities like Lagos, seeking better lives. Most lack the professional skills, networks, and cultural knowledge to succeed. My program provides 6 weeks of intensive training in business English, digital literacy, interview preparation, and workplace etiquette. Interesting, one of the female judges interrupted, a woman named Mrs. Adebayo who owned a chain of fashion boutiques. But surely these women can access YouTube tutorials and free online courses. Why would companies pay for your program? Because YouTube doesn't teach confidence, Amara replied. It doesn't address the subtle class barriers that keep talented women locked out of opportunities. I lived this experience. I know what it's like to have the skills but not the polish, the education but not the connections. My program partners directly with employers committed to diversity, guaranteeing job interviews for graduates. Senator Okoro leaned back in his chair. And you have these employer partnerships confirmed? Not yet, sir. That's what the grant funding would help me establish. So you're asking us to fund a business with no proven market, no established partnerships, and a founder with no entrepreneurial track record. His voice had gone cold. Tell me, Ms. Okafor, what makes you think you can execute this vision when you've never run a business before? The room fell silent. Amara felt the other judges shift uncomfortably. This wasn't constructive questioning. This was a demolition. With respect, Senator, Every successful entrepreneur started with no track record. Her voice didn't shake. What I bring is lived experience, a deep understanding of my target market, and a commitment that comes from personal pain. I've felt the sting of being dismissed for where I come from. I've watched talented women from my village clean houses and hawk goods because no one gave them a chance to be more. This business isn't theoretical to me, it's necessary. Mrs. Adebayo smiled slightly. I like her fire. But Senator Okoro wasn't done. I heard you recently walked out of your own wedding. Quite the scandal. How do we know you have the stability to commit to a long-term venture? You seem impulsive. Amara's jaw tightened. So that's how Chitty was playing it, character assassination. Walking away from public humiliation isn't impulsive, Senator. It's self-preservation. And if we're discussing stability, I'd argue that staying in a relationship where I was openly mocked shows less business judgment than leaving one. She looked directly at him. Good entrepreneurs know when to cut losses and pivot. I did exactly that. Zainab Ibrahim spoke for the first time. Thank you, Ms. Okafor. We'll deliberate and announce the winner this evening. Amara left the room knowing she'd fought well, but uncertain if it was enough. Outside, Chitty was waiting. That was quite a performance. Stay away from me. I tried to help you, Amara. I told the senator to go easy on you. But you had to be stubborn, didn't you? He stepped closer, his cologne overwhelming. You could have had everything, my name, my money, my connections. Instead, you chose pride. No, Amara said quietly. I chose self-respect. There's a difference. His expression darkened. You won't win this competition. Even if you do, I'll make sure no company partners with you. I'll have you blacklisted from every corporate office in Lagos. This isn't just about revenge anymore, Amara. It's about teaching you your place. Before she could respond, a voice cut through the tension. Mr. Okonkwo, is there a problem here? They both turned. The male judge Amara hadn't recognized stood behind them, tall, distinguished, maybe mid-50s. His gaze was sharp and assessing. Mr. Nwosu. Chitty's demeanor shifted instantly, all charm again. Just catching up with an old friend. She doesn't look like she wants to catch up. Mr. Nwosu turned to Amara. Ms. Okafor, may I have a word? He led her to a quiet corner while Chitty watched, his jaw clenched. I'm Emeka Nwosu. I own Nwosu Holdings, logistics, real estate, tech investments across West Africa. I was not supposed to be on this panel today, but the original judge canceled last minute. He pulled out a business card. Your pitch was the best I've heard today. Raw, yes. Needing refinement, absolutely. But authentic and necessary. I've built businesses in 12 countries, Ms. Okafor, and I've learned that the greatest entrepreneurs are the ones who've tasted failure and chose to rise anyway. Amara's hands shook as she took the card. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. You didn't win the competition. Her heart sank. Senator Okoro awarded it to his niece, some luxury handbag business that will fold in 6 months. But here's what I'm offering instead. Private funding, double what that grant provides, and 3 months of my personal mentorship. In exchange, I want 20% equity in your company. Amara couldn't breathe. Why? Because 40 years ago, I was a village boy from Anambra who moved to Lagos with nothing. Someone gave me a chance. Now it's my turn to pass it forward. He glanced at Chitty, who was trying to look casual while obviously eavesdropping. Plus, I enjoy watching entitled young men learn that their father's connections don't guarantee control forever. This was bigger than the grant. This was a real investor, real mentorship, real credibility. I accept, Amara said. Mr. Nwosu smiled. Good. My assistant will call you Monday. We'll discuss terms, business structure, and launch strategy. Oh, and Ms. Okafor? When that young man tries to sabotage you, and he will, call me immediately. As he walked away, Amara stood in the hallway, holding a business card that changed everything. Chitty stormed over. What did he offer you? Something you could never give me, Amara replied. A fair chance. She walked away, leaving him sputtering in the corporate hallway, and for the first time in 3 months, she felt something beyond anger. She felt power. Comment if you've ever had someone try to sabotage your success. Don't forget to like and share this story if you're hooked. What happens when Amara launches her business? Keep watching. 6 months later, From Village to Victory had transformed from a desperate dream into a living, breathing enterprise. Amara leased a small office space in Yaba, not fancy Lekki where Chitty's businesses operated, but the real heart of Lagos's tech and startup scene. The walls were painted bright yellow, her mother's choice, with photographs of successful graduates already decorating the hallway. 23 women had completed the first cohort. 19 had secured jobs within 3 weeks. The local papers were calling it a success story. The Guardian Nigeria ran a feature, From Wedding Walkout to Business Breakout, Amara Okafor's Redemption. But success attracts enemies. Amara was reviewing applications for the second cohort when Ngozi burst into her office, laptop in hand, her face pale. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Ngozi turned the screen around. A blog post, published that morning on a popular Lagos gossip site, The Truth About Amara Okafor, Fraud, Lies, and a Bitter Ex. Amara's blood ran cold as she read. The anonymous post claimed she'd fabricated her credentials, that From Village to Victory was a scam preying on vulnerable women, that the success stories were paid actors. It included screenshots, doctored, clearly, but convincing enough, of supposed complaints from former students claiming they'd paid fees but received no training. This is insane, Amara breathed. Every word is a lie. I know that. You know that. But do they? Ngozi gestured to the comments section, already filling with outrage. This is viral, Amara. It's been shared 3,000 times in 4 hours. Amara's hands shook. She'd been so careful, every penny accounted for, every promise kept, every student personally followed up with. This was surgical-level sabotage. Her phone rang. Mr. Nwosu. Ms. Okafor, I assume you've seen the blog post. Yes, sir. It's completely false. I believe you. But we need to control this narrative immediately. I've already contacted my legal team. We'll file for defamation and demand the post's removal, but that takes time. Meanwhile, you need to get ahead of this publicly. How? Transparency. Release your financial records, student testimonials with real names and faces, video testimonies if possible. Flood social media with proof. And find out who wrote this. His voice hardened. Because this wasn't just malicious, it was informed. Someone with access to your business details. After hanging up, Amara sat in stunned silence. Access to business details. She ran a small operation. Only 4 people had full access to her financial records and student database. Herself, Ngozi, her assistant Grace, and her office door opened. Grace entered with coffee, her usual cheerful smile in place. Saw the blog post. It's terrible. But don't worry, we'll fight this. Amara studied her assistant's face. Grace had been recommended by a staffing agency 3 months ago. Young, eager, competent. Too competent, maybe. Grace, can I see your phone for a second? My phone. Grace's smile faltered. Why? Just routine security check. With this blog situation, I need to ensure no one's been accessing our systems inappropriately. I need to use the bathroom first. Grace set down the coffee and practically ran from the office. Ngozi's eyes widened. You don't think? Amara was already moving to Grace's desk. The computer was logged in, email open. She scanned quickly. Nothing suspicious. Then she noticed the chat window minimized at the bottom. She clicked it. A WhatsApp web conversation with a contact saved as C. Boss. Posted the article. Should destroy her credibility. Grace, that morning. Good. Keep monitoring. Let me know if she gets desperate enough to close down. C. Boss. What about the money you promised? When she's completely finished, you'll get your payment. Plus a job in one of my companies. Better than working for that village girl. The office door slammed open. Grace stood there, breathing hard, her bag clutched in her hand. You had no right to look at my computer. You had no right to betray me. Amara's voice was ice. Chitty paid you to sabotage my business. Grace's mask cracked. You don't understand. He offered me 50,000 naira. That's more than you pay in 2 months. Plus, he promised me a real job with benefits, not this startup nonsense. So you destroyed my reputation for money. You're so naive, Amara. Grace's voice rose, defensive and angry. You think walking away from Chitty made you a hero? You're a cautionary tale. A woman who threw away security for pride. He's rich, connected, powerful. Of course I chose his side. Ngozi stepped forward. Get out before I call the police. Call them. Grace laughed bitterly. He has lawyers. You have nothing. This business will fold in a month, and you'll go crawling back to your village where you belong. After Grace left, Amara sat heavily in her chair. Ngozi started pacing. We need to report this to the police. She admitted to fraud, defamation. It won't matter. Amara's voice was hollow. Chitty's family has connections with half the police commissioners in Lagos. They'll bury it. So what do we do? Amara looked at the chat logs still open on Grace's computer. Then an idea formed, risky, possibly illegal, but effective. We do what he doesn't expect. We don't defend ourselves. She opened her phone and started typing a social media post. We go on the attack. Within an hour, Amara had posted a detailed thread on Twitter and Instagram, exposing the sabotage with screenshots of Grace's conversation with Seed Boss. She didn't name Chitty directly, that would be libel, but she laid out the timeline of harassment, the competition sabotage, the planted employee, the fake blog post. When a powerful man can't control a woman, he tries to destroy her, she wrote. But here's what he didn't count on. I have proof, I have principles, and I have a platform. Hashtag small business sabotage, hashtag Amara stands strong. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Thousands of shares, messages of support, offers of help. Several journalists requested interviews. 2 law firms offered pro bono services. Most surprisingly, other women began sharing their own stories of being sabotaged by powerful ex-partners. But at midnight, when Amara finally allowed herself to feel the weight of the day, she broke down. Ngozi held her while she sobbed, not from defeat, but from exhaustion. Every step forward felt like walking through quicksand. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Congratulations on your little publicity stunt. Chitty's voice was smooth, unbothered. You've made yourself a martyr. But martyrs don't build successful businesses, Amara. They just die memorable deaths. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. You think exposing Grace hurts me? She was disposable. I have 10 more people who'll do whatever I need. I have money, lawyers, connections that reach from Lagos to Abuja. You have a Twitter thread and borrowed office space. He paused. Here's what's going to happen. Your second cohort will mysteriously struggle to find jobs. Companies will suddenly have concerns about your program's legitimacy. Investors will get anonymous tips about your questionable business practices. And slowly, painfully, your little empire will crumble. Why? Amara's voice broke. Why can't you just let me go? Because you embarrassed me. For the first time, his polished mask slipped, revealing raw fury underneath. You made me look weak in front of Lagos society. You turned our wedding into a viral joke. You rejected everything I offered you. Women don't do that to men like me and walk away unscathed. The line went dead. Amara sat in her dark office, surrounded by photographs of women she'd helped, testimonials she'd earned, dreams she'd built from rubble. Chitty was right about one thing. He had more power, more money, more connections. But he'd forgotten something crucial. She had nothing left to lose. And that made her more dangerous than he could imagine. She opened her laptop and began typing an email to Mr. Nwosu's legal team. If Chidi wanted war, she'd give him one, but she'd fight smart, not just hard. By dawn, she had a plan that would either save her business or destroy them both. What lengths would you go to protect your dream? Comment your thoughts and hit subscribe. The battle is just beginning. Don't miss what happens next. The law office of Adeyemi and Partners occupied the 15th floor of a glass tower overlooking Lagos Lagoon. Amara sat in a leather chair that probably cost more than her entire month's rent, watching Mr. Nwosu's lawyers review her evidence. Grace's chat logs, the timeline of sabotage attempts, records of Chidi's interference in the pitch competition, testimonials from witnesses at the wedding. "This is substantial," said Folake Adeyemi, the senior partner, a woman in her 60s who'd built her reputation defending women in high-profile divorce cases. "We can pursue legal action for defamation, tortious interference with business relations, and possibly criminal harassment." But Amara heard the hesitation. But cases like this take time. Years, potentially. And the Okonkwo family has deep pockets and deeper connections. They'll drag this out, file countersuits, bury us in motions. Folake leaned forward. "I'm not saying we can't win. I'm saying you need to prepare for a long, expensive, public battle." Mr. Nwosu, sitting beside Amara, spoke up. "I'll cover legal costs. That's not the issue. The issue is keeping her business alive while we fight." "Exactly," Folake agreed. "Chidi's strategy is death by 1,000 cuts. He'll keep sabotaging until you run out of resources and will to continue. So the question isn't just how we sue him, it's how we neutralize his influence while the case proceeds." Amara had been thinking about this for 3 days straight. What if we don't neutralize him? What if we isolate him instead? All eyes turned to her. Chidi's power comes from his family's reputation and business connections. The Okonkwo name means something in Lagos: oil money, political access, social prestige. But what if that name became toxic? Amara pulled out her phone, showing them a social media thread she'd been drafting. "I'm not the only woman he's harmed. During our relationship, he told me stories about other ex-girlfriends he'd put in their place. What if we found them?" Folake's eyes gleamed with interest. "A pattern of abuse. That changes everything." Over the next 2 weeks, Amara became a detective. With Ngozi's help, she tracked down 3 of Chidi's ex-girlfriends through mutual friends and social media. The first, Adaora, initially refused to talk. She was married now, didn't want trouble. But when Amara explained what Chidi was doing to her business, Adaora's resolve cracked. They met at a quiet restaurant in Ikeja. Adaora was elegant, composed, but her hands shook slightly as she stirred her coffee. "He wasn't physically abusive," she started. "But emotionally. Chidi knew exactly how to break you down. He'd compliment you in public, then tear you apart in private. Always about your background, your appearance, your intelligence. By the time I left him, I barely recognized myself." "Did he retaliate when you ended things?" Adaora's laugh was bitter. "I worked at a bank, junior analyst position. 2 weeks after our breakup, I was fired. No explanation, no warning. I later found out Chidi's uncle sits on the bank's board of directors. I couldn't prove anything, but I knew. Would you be willing to give a statement?" Adaora hesitated. "My husband doesn't know the full story about Chidi. If this becomes public—" "It might not need to be fully public," Amara said gently. "But having documented evidence of a pattern helps, even if it's just for legal leverage." Eventually, Adaora agreed. So did the second ex-girlfriend, Kayamika, who'd been psychologically tormented until she dropped out of university. The third, Blessing, told a story that made Amara's blood boil. Chidi had gotten her pregnant, then pressured her to abort, then abandoned her to deal with the medical complications alone. "He paid for the procedure, then disappeared," Blessing said, tears streaming down her face. "When I tried to reach out months later, he had his lawyers send me a cease and desist letter. Told me if I ever contacted him again, He'd sue me for harassment. I was 19 years old. Armed with these testimonies, Folklore built what she called a character profile. Not enough to win a criminal case, but devastating if it ever became public. She sent a private letter to the Okonkwo family lawyer. Stand down, or we publish. For one glorious week, Amara heard nothing. The harassment stopped. The sabotage attempts ceased. She dared to hope. Then Chidi's mother showed up at her office. Adiz Okonkwo arrived in a chauffeur-driven Mercedes, dressed in expensive osowoke that probably cost more than Amara's monthly salary. She swept into the reception area like a queen entering enemy territory, her gold jewelry glinting under the fluorescent lights. "Mrs. Okonkwo," Amara said carefully, "I wasn't expecting you." Clearly. Adiz's gaze swept over the modest office with barely concealed disdain. "May we speak privately?" In Amara's office, Adiz didn't sit. She stood by the window, looking out over Yaba's chaotic streets, so different from the manicured wealth of Ikoyi where her family lived. "You've been busy," Adiz began. "Collecting stories from my son's past relationships. Building some sort of case against him. Very industrious. He wouldn't leave me alone. I'm protecting my business." "Your business." Adiz finally turned, her expression cold. "Let's speak plainly, Amara. You were a beautiful distraction for my son, a pretty girl from nowhere who made him feel charitable. But you were never meant to be permanent. When you walked out of that wedding, you should have stayed gone. Instead, you've become inconvenient. Inconvenient because I won't be silenced. Inconvenient because you're making my family look bad." Adiz pulled an envelope from her designer handbag. "I'm here to offer you a solution. 5 million naira. Enough to expand your little training program, rent a better office, maybe even hire proper staff. In exchange, you sign a non-disclosure agreement, drop any legal action, and we all move forward." Amara stared at the envelope. 5 million naira. It was more money than she'd seen in her life, enough to truly scale her business, enough to secure her future. Enough to bury the pain and move on. "Your son humiliated my family in front of 200 people, Amara said quietly. Then he tried to destroy my business, my reputation, my livelihood. And you think 5 million naira makes that acceptable? I think 5 million naira is generous for a girl from Enugu with a startup that might not survive the year." Adiz's voice was sharp as broken glass. "You're playing in a world you don't understand, Amara. My family has been building power in this country for 3 generations. We have investments in oil, real estate, telecommunications. We have senators, governors, business moguls in our pocket. You have a rented office and borrowed money. I also have the truth." "The truth." Adiz laughed, a cold, elegant sound. "The truth is whatever people with money and influence say it is. You release those testimonies, and my lawyers will destroy those women's credibility. We'll paint them as bitter ex-girlfriends seeking attention. We'll dig into their pasts until we find something. Everyone has secrets, my dear. And you'll be the vindictive woman who tried to weaponize feminism for revenge." Amara felt the air leave her lungs. This was different from fighting Chidi's tantrums. This was calculated, institutional power. This was generations of wealth and connections mobilized to crush one woman who dared say no. "So those are my choices?" Amara's voice shook. "Take your money and disappear, or be destroyed? Those are your realistic options, yes." Adiz placed the envelope on Amara's desk. "You have 48 hours to decide. After that, we stop being generous and start being thorough. Think about your family in Enugu, your father's small farming business, your brother's admission to university next year. Think about how much more difficult their lives could become if you insist on being stubborn." She was threatening her family now. The message was clear: surrender, or everyone you love suffers. After Adiz left, Amara sat frozen in her chair for 20 minutes. Ngozi found her there, staring at the envelope full of blood money. "What happened?" Amara explained everything. Ngozi's face went from shock to rage to fear. She threatened your family. Amara, maybe we should give up. Amara's voice was hollow. Let them win. I'm saying maybe we choose our battles. 5 million naira could do real good. You could help hundreds of women. Built on a foundation of cowardice. Amara stood abruptly, grabbing the envelope. She walked to her paper shredder and fed it through, watching the money-filled envelope disappear into strips. I'm not taking their money. I'm not signing their agreement. And I'm not backing down. Then what are we doing? Amara pulled out her phone and called Folake Adeyemi. We're filing the lawsuit. All of it. Defamation, harassment, tortious interference. And we're holding a press conference to announce it. Amara, are you sure? Once we do this, there's no going back. They'll come at you with everything. They're already coming at me with everything. At least this way, I'm fighting back. Amara looked at Ngozi, at the photos of her graduates on the wall, at the future she'd built from pain. Schedule the press conference for Monday. I want the whole city to know what the Okonkwo family does to women who don't obey. That weekend, Amara barely slept. She prepared her statement, reviewed her evidence, practiced staying calm under pressure. Sunday evening, her mother called from Enugu. Amara, what is this we're hearing? People are saying you're fighting with Chidi's family in court. They're saying his mother came to threaten you. Mama, I can explain. Are you safe? Her mother's voice cracked. Baby, these are powerful people. I don't want you hurt. I'm tired of being hurt, Mama. I'm tired of being scared. If I back down now, what message does that send to all the women I'm trying to help? That power always wins? That we should just accept disrespect quietly? There was a long silence. Then her mother said something that changed everything. Your grandmother once told me, a lion doesn't fear the noise of a marketplace. You are my lion, Amara. Make all the noise you need. Monday morning, Amara stood in front of 20 journalists in a rented event space in Ikeja. Cameras flashed. Microphones thrust forward. She wore a simple white dress her mother had made. No expensive brands, no borrowed elegance. Just herself. My name is Amara Okafor, and I'm here to share my story of domestic betrayal and corporate sabotage by one of Lagos's most prominent families. Her voice was steady, clear. 3 months ago, I walked away from a wedding to a man who publicly mocked my family's poverty. Since then, he and his family have systematically tried to destroy my business and my reputation. They planted a spy in my company. They created false articles claiming I was a fraud. They used their connections to block my partnerships and intimidate my investors. She paused, looking directly into the cameras. But I'm not here as a victim. I'm here as a warning. When powerful families believe they own women like property, they will do anything to punish independence. I'm filing a comprehensive lawsuit against Chidi Okonkwo and his family for defamation, harassment, and tortious interference. And I'm calling on other women who've been silenced by power and money to speak up. We are stronger than their connections. We are louder than their threats. The journalists erupted with questions. Amara answered them all calmly, methodically, providing evidence without emotion. When she finished, she felt simultaneously lighter and more terrified than ever before. By evening, the story was everywhere. #Amara vs. Okonkwo trended nationwide. Support poured in from women's groups, advocacy organizations, even some politicians sensing a popular cause. But the backlash was equally fierce, comments calling her a gold digger, an opportunist, a bitter ex-fiancé weaponizing victimhood. At 11 p.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. You've made a terrible mistake. Chidi's voice was no longer smooth. It was raw with rage. My mother offered you peace. You chose war. Now you'll learn what war with my family actually means. Bring it, Amara said and hung up. She didn't sleep that night. Because somewhere in Lagos, in a mansion she'd once thought would be her home, the Okonkwo family was planning their counterattack. And it would be more vicious than anything she'd faced so far. Drop a comment if you would have taken the money or fought back. Don't forget to subscribe. The real battle starts now. What do you think the Okonkwo's do next? The counterattack came at dawn, 3 days after the press conference. Amara woke to 50 missed calls and her social media notifications exploding. She clicked on Twitter, and her blood turned to ice. A new hashtag was trending. Hashtag Amara Okafor exposed. Posted from multiple anonymous accounts but clearly coordinated, a flood of accusations. She'd embezzled funds from her business, she did affairs with married men to get ahead, she'd fabricated her academic credentials, she was mentally unstable. But the worst was a video. Someone had edited together footage from the wedding, taken out of context, to make it seem like she'd caused a scene over a harmless joke. Chitty appeared calm and confused in the clips, while she looked hysterical. The caption read, "Bitter woman destroys good man's reputation to cover her own instability. Hashtag golddigger, hashtag manipulative feminist." It had been shared 15,000 times. Ngozi arrived at her apartment an hour later, finding Amara on the floor, scrolling through comment after comment tearing her apart. "They've turned me into a monster," Amara whispered. "Half of Nigeria thinks I'm a liar." Not half. Just the loudest voices. Ngozi grabbed the phone from her hands. "Listen to me. This is their play. Overwhelm you with so much negativity that you give up. But you know the truth. Your students know the truth. The women you've helped know the truth. Truth doesn't matter if no one believes it. Then we make them believe it." Ngozi pulled up her laptop. "We document everything. Every graduate's success story. Video testimonials. Employer confirmations. Financial transparency. We flood the internet with so much proof that their lies drown in facts." Over the next 48 hours, Amara's small team worked around the clock. 23 graduates recorded testimonials on video, their faces and real names attached. 6 employers sent letters confirming they'd hired her graduates and were impressed with the program's quality. Mr. Nwosu publicly endorsed her business and threatened legal action against anyone spreading proven falsehoods. An independent auditor reviewed her finances and published a statement. From Village to Victory's financial records are transparent, properly maintained, and show no evidence of embezzlement or fraud. The tide began to turn. Slowly, then faster. Journalists who'd initially covered the scandal now wrote follow-ups questioning the coordinated smear campaign. Women's advocacy groups organized a solidarity rally. Prominent feminists and entrepreneurs defended Amara publicly. But the Okonkwo family wasn't done. On Friday evening, Amara received a legal notice. Chitty was suing her for defamation, claiming her press conference had damaged his reputation and business prospects. He was seeking 50 million naira in damages. Folklore reviewed the suit and shook her head. "It's frivolous, but that's the point. They want to drain your resources fighting multiple legal battles simultaneously. Classic intimidation tactic. Can I counter-sue? You already have a suit against them pending. This is their way of bogging down the process, making it more expensive and complicated." Folklore leaned back. "The real question is, how long can you sustain this fight?" Amara thought about her dwindling savings, the stress affecting her health, the way her family worried every time they spoke. She thought about the second cohort applications, down by 40% because potential students feared association with controversy. She thought about waking up every morning to new attacks, new lies, new battles. "As long as it takes," she said finally. That weekend, something unexpected happened. A wealthy businesswoman named Ngozi Okoye, no relation to her best friend, reached out through Mr. Nwosu. Okoye owned a chain of hotels across West Africa and had followed Amara's story with interest. They met at one of her hotels in Victoria Island. Ngozi Okoye was in her late 50s, self-made, with a reputation for being ruthlessly fair. She ordered wine for them both and got straight to the point. "I knew Adiz Okonkwo in university," she began. "She was just as vicious then as she is now, destroyed any woman she saw as competition. I've watched her son grow up with the same entitled cruelty." She sipped her wine. "I want to help you, but not out of charity. I have a business proposition." "I'm listening." "My hotels employ thousands of people. Housekeeping, front desk, management. I struggle to find qualified candidates from diverse backgrounds. Your training program could be the pipeline I need. She pulled out a contract. Partner with me. I'll fund an accelerated expansion of From Village to Victory. In exchange, I get first access to your graduates for my hiring needs, and you get stable long-term revenue that doesn't depend on grants or investors who might get scared off by controversy. Amara read through the contract carefully. It was generous. Almost too generous. Why are you really doing this? Ngozi Okoye smiled. Because 30 years ago, a powerful man tried to destroy my business when I refused to sleep with him. I nearly gave up. Someone helped me then, and I've never forgotten it. Consider this me paying forward, and also making good business sense. Your program works, Amara. I've done my research. The Okonkwo family's smear campaign is noise. Your results are signal. They signed the partnership agreement that evening. With Okoye Hotels as an anchor client, From Village to Victory suddenly had financial stability, credibility, and protection. Other companies began expressing interest in similar partnerships. When Amara shared the news with her team, Ngozi burst into tears. We're going to make it. We're actually going to survive this. But that night, Amara received a message that chilled her celebration. Congratulations on your little partnership. Enjoy it while it lasts. You have no idea what's coming. See. She forwarded it to Folake, who immediately filed for a restraining order. But they both knew a piece of paper wouldn't stop someone as determined as Chitty. Monday morning brought the next attack, and it was personal. Amara arrived at her office to find the locks changed. A notice on the door, eviction for breach of lease agreement. She called her landlord, confused. She'd paid rent on time, every month. I received a complaint about illegal business activities on the premises, the landlord said nervously. And I can't afford problems with the authorities, so I'm exercising my right to terminate your lease. What complaint? From who? I can't say. But you have 72 hours to remove your belongings. Amara sat on the curb outside her locked office and finally allowed herself to cry. Not from weakness, but from the sheer exhaustion of fighting an enemy with infinite resources and no conscience. Every time she gained ground, they pulled the earth from beneath her feet. Ngozi Okoye called within the hour. I heard about the eviction. I have office space in my corporate building, smaller than what you had, but it's yours rent-free for 6 months. Move in today if you need to. Why are you being so kind to me? Because women like us have to stick together against men like them. And Amara? This battle you're fighting, it's bigger than just you and Chitty. Every woman watching is learning that resistance is possible. Don't give up now. But as Amara coordinated the emergency office move, she couldn't shake Chitty's message. You have no idea what's coming. What was coming? What could be worse than what she'd already endured? She found out the next evening when her youngest brother, Kelechi, called from Enugu. His voice was panicked. Sister, armed men came to Papa's farm today. They said we're farming on disputed land, that someone has a government document claiming ownership. They told Papa he has 2 weeks to vacate or they'll bulldoze everything. The farm had been in their family for 40 years. There was no disputed claim. This was fabricated, orchestrated, another pressure point. They're going after Papa now, Kelechi continued, his voice breaking. Because of your fight with that Lagos man. Mama is saying maybe you should stop, maybe it's not worth it. Put Papa on the phone. Her father's voice was tired but steady. Amara, my daughter. These people are wicked. Papa, I'm so sorry. I never wanted. Listen to me. Your grandmother, my mother, she once told me something when I was your age. She said, the tree that bears good fruit will always be stoned. You are bearing good fruit, helping women, standing for justice. Of course wicked people will throw stones. But we don't stop growing because of stones. Amara closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. They're attacking you to get to me. Then we fight together. This farm is our livelihood, yes. But your dignity, your purpose, that is your livelihood. Don't you dare surrender it to save us. We didn't raise a coward." After hanging up, Amara sat in her new temporary office, surrounded by boxes of files and broken dreams. Folklore was working on the farm situation, but they both knew challenging a government document would take months. The Okonkwo's were playing a long game, make her life so unbearable that eventually she'd collapse under the weight. But they'd made one miscalculation. They assumed she was fighting for a business. She was fighting for something bigger. For every woman told she wasn't good enough, for every person mocked for their humble origins, for the radical idea that power shouldn't always win. Amara opened her laptop and started writing. Not a surrender. Not a plea. A declaration of war. If you've ever felt crushed by someone more powerful, drop a comment. What would you do in Amara's place? Subscribe and share if this story is hitting home. The declaration came in the form of a 12-minute video Amara posted across all platforms at midnight. No professional polish, no script. Just her, sitting in her half-packed office, speaking directly to the camera. "My name is Amara Okafor, and I'm exhausted," she began. "I'm exhausted from fighting a family that has more money, more lawyers, and more cruelty than I could have imagined. But I'm posting this video because I want every woman watching to understand something. Exhaustion isn't the same as defeat." She detailed everything: the sabotage, the smear campaign, the threats to her family, the eviction, the attack on her father's farm. She showed documents, screenshots, evidence. But more than that, she showed her humanity. The tears, the fear, the moments of wanting to give up. "The Okonkwo family believes they can break me because they've broken others before. They believe that poverty equals powerlessness. But they're wrong. I have something they'll never have: integrity. And I have all of you." She looked directly into the camera. If you've ever been bullied by someone with more power, if you've ever been told to stay in your place, if you've ever walked away from something that hurt you and been punished for it, this fight is yours too. Stand with me. Share this video. Let them know that we're not afraid anymore. She posted it and went to sleep, unsure if anyone would care. By morning, the video had 3 million views. The response was overwhelming. Women across Nigeria, across Africa, across the diaspora shared their own stories of being crushed by powerful men. Domestic violence survivors, women fired for refusing advances, students expelled for reporting harassment, they all saw themselves in Amara's fight. Hashtags multiplied. Hashtag we stand with Amara. Hashtag power doesn't win. Hashtag Okonkwo accountability. Protest rallies formed outside the Okonkwo family's business headquarters in Ikoyi. Women's rights organizations demanded investigations into the family's business practices. 3 brands announced they were severing partnerships with Okonkwo enterprises over concerns about corporate ethics. But the real earthquake came from an unexpected source. Senator Okoro, the judge who'd sabotaged Amara's pitch competition, gave a stunning interview to The Guardian Nigeria. "I've spent my career accepting favors from families like the Okonkwos," he admitted, his face haggard. "I rigged that competition because Chidi's uncle asked me to. I've looked the other way at corruption, abuse, manipulation. Watching this young woman fight alone while I enabled her oppressors, I can't live with that anymore." He resigned from the Senate and volunteered to testify in Amara's lawsuit about the extent of the Okonkwo family's influence peddling. The dam was breaking. 2 more of Chidi's ex-girlfriends came forward publicly with their stories. A former business partner revealed that Chidi had stolen intellectual property from a startup and used his family's lawyers to crush the founders. An employee at Okonkwo Enterprises anonymously leaked documents showing systematic tax evasion and contractor fraud. Within a week, the Okonkwo family went from untouchable to toxic. Chidi's social media accounts went dark. Adiz stopped appearing at her usual society events. The family's patriarch, Chief Okonkwo, issued a terse statement calling the allegations a coordinated attack by jealous competitors, but notably didn't deny any specific claims. Folklore called Amara with barely contained excitement. The EFCC, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, just announced they're opening an investigation into Okonkwo Enterprises. Your case gave them the public pressure they needed to act on tips they'd been sitting on for years. What does that mean for us? It means we're no longer fighting alone. The federal government is now involved. If they find evidence of financial crimes, the Okonkwo's will have much bigger problems than your lawsuit. Amara should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt terrified. Cornered powerful people are dangerous people. That afternoon, Mr. Nwosu called an emergency meeting. I need you to increase your security. Immediately. Security? I can't afford. I'm paying for it. 2 bodyguards, 24/7. And you're moving out of your apartment into a secure location. You think they'll physically hurt me? I think they're losing everything they've built over 3 generations, and desperate people do desperate things. I'm not taking chances with your safety. That evening, as Amara packed her belongings under the watchful eyes of her new security detail, 2 stern men named Emeka and Ibrahim, Ngozi helped her process the surreal turn her life had taken. You're like a political figure now, Ngozi marveled. With bodyguards and everything. I just wanted to run a small training program. Amara's laugh was hollow. I just wanted to help women like me. How did it become this? Because you touched something raw. This isn't really about you and Chidi anymore. It's about everyone who's ever been stepped on by the powerful. You became a symbol. Symbols get martyred, Ngozi. Before her friend could respond, Amara's phone rang. Her father. Amara, something happened. The armed men came back to the farm today, but this time the local commissioner of police came with them. He had a court order. Turns out the disputed ownership claim was fabricated using forged documents. The men have been arrested. What? How? That senator who resigned, Okoro, he made some calls. Got the right people involved. The documents traced back to a shell company owned by. He paused. By the Okonkwo family. This was bigger than harassment now. This was criminal fraud, attempted land theft, corruption. The kind of charges that carried prison time. Folake called minutes later. Did you hear about the forged documents? Amara, this changes everything. We're not just suing for defamation anymore. We can pursue criminal charges for fraud, intimidation, conspiracy. The prosecutor's office is already interested. Will they actually prosecute? Or will the Okonkwos buy their way out? That's why the timing matters. Public pressure is at an all-time high. Politicians need to be seen taking action. For once, justice might actually be served. But that night, as Amara lay in a strange hotel room with armed guards outside her door, she couldn't sleep. Because somewhere in Lagos, the Okonkwo family was facing ruin, and ruined people burn everything on their way down. Her phone buzzed at 2 a.m. A blocked number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Congratulations. It was Chidi, but his voice was different. Hollow, defeated, dangerous. You've destroyed my family's name. My father's business is under investigation. My mother hasn't left her room in 3 days. You've gotten everything you wanted. I wanted to be left alone. No. You wanted revenge. And you got it. You turned me into a national villain. But here's what you don't understand, Amara. Villains don't go down alone. Is that a threat? It's a promise. My family is finished, yes. But I'm taking you with me. You think you've won? This is just the beginning of your nightmare. The line went dead. Amara sat up, her heart racing. She immediately called Folake, who was still awake working on the case. He just called me. Chidi. He said he's going to take me down with him. Empty threats. What can he possibly do now? He's under investigation. His reputation is destroyed. Desperate men are capable of anything. Folake was quiet for a moment. I'll notify the prosecutor's office about the threatening call. And Amara? Don't go anywhere without your security. I mean it. The next morning brought a new horror. Amara woke to frantic calls from Ngozi. Turn on the news. Now. She grabbed the hotel TV remote. Every major news channel was covering the same story. An explosive tell-all interview with Chidi Okonkwo. On screen, Chidi sat across from a popular journalist, looking haggard and repentant. "I've made terrible mistakes," he was saying. "I was raised with privilege and arrogance, and I hurt Amara Okafor deeply. I take full responsibility for that. But there's another side to this story that no one's heard." The journalist leaned forward. "What side?" "Amara and I had an arrangement. She knew exactly what kind of man I was. We discussed it openly. She wanted access to my wealth and connections, and I wanted a beautiful woman from humble origins to make me look good. It was transactional from the start." His voice was calm, measured, devastatingly convincing. "When I made that joke at the wedding, yes, it was inappropriate. But it was consistent with the dynamic we'd established. She walked out not because she was hurt, but because she saw an opportunity to become famous, to play the victim, to launch her business on my family's downfall." "That's absurd," Amara screamed at the TV. But Chitty continued. "I'm not saying I'm blameless. I'm saying this situation is more complicated than the narrative being sold. And now my entire family is being destroyed, businesses investigated, reputation ruined, my father's health failing, because of a carefully orchestrated public relations campaign." He looked directly at the camera, his eyes wet with manufactured tears. "Amara, if you're watching this, I'm sorry for the pain I caused you. But please, call off this crusade. My family has suffered enough." The interview ended with the journalist praising Chitty's courageous honesty and accountability. Amara's phone exploded. The narrative was shifting again. Comments poured in. "Maybe she is just a gold digger after all. He seems genuinely remorseful. This feminist revenge culture has gone too far. All the goodwill, all the support, all the progress, evaporating in real time." Ngozi arrived at the hotel within an hour, finding Amara pacing like a caged animal. "We need to respond. Today. Right now. How do I prove our relationship wasn't transactional? How do I prove my feelings were real?" He's turned intimacy into evidence of guilt. "We don't prove feelings. We prove patterns." Ngozi pulled up her laptop. "The ex-girlfriends, he's claiming you were different, special, a schemer. But if we show he treated every woman the same way, said the same things, made the same promises." Amara's phone rang. It was Blessing, one of the ex-girlfriends who'd testified earlier. "I just watched that disgusting interview. He told me the exact same thing, that our relationship was an arrangement, that I knew what I was getting into. It's his standard defense. He rewrites history to make himself the victim." An idea formed. Amara called the other ex-girlfriends. They all had the same story. Chitty had used the "you knew what this was" defense with each of them. Within 3 hours, they'd organized a joint press conference. 4 women, 4 different stories, one consistent pattern of manipulation and rewritten narratives. They called it "the pattern of predation, why we're speaking up." The press conference went viral. Journalists who'd softened toward Chitty after his interview now questioned his sincerity. The tide turned back again, but Amara knew it was fragile, temporary. That evening, Folklore called with urgent news. The EFCC investigation has uncovered something major. Chitty's been moving money out of the country. Millions of dollars transferred to offshore accounts over the past 2 weeks. They've frozen his assets and issued a travel ban. He can't leave Nigeria. He's preparing to run. He was. But now he's trapped. And trapped animals are the most dangerous. Amara looked out her hotel window at Lagos stretching endlessly below, a city of dreams and nightmares, opportunity and predation. Somewhere out there, Chitty was planning his final move. And she had no idea what it would be. Are you Team Amara or Team Chitty? Comment below. This story is far from over. Subscribe so you don't miss the explosive conclusion. What's Chitty's endgame? The summons came on a Wednesday morning. Amara was required to appear at the Lagos High Court for a preliminary hearing in Chitty's defamation lawsuit against her. Despite the EFCC investigation, despite the travel ban, despite everything, his legal team was pushing forward, one last attempt to drag her down. Folklore wasn't worried. This is a desperate move. With all the evidence against him, no judge will rule in his favor. But we still need to show up and respond. The courthouse in Lagos Island was a colonial-era building that looked exhausted from decades of bearing witness to Nigeria's injustices. Amara arrived with her security detail, Folklore, and Mr. Nwosu, who'd insisted on being there for moral support. Press photographers swarmed the entrance, shouting questions. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Amara spotted several faces she recognized: journalists, women's rights activists, even some of her program graduates who'd taken the day off to support her. On the opposite side sat the Okonkwo family in their expensive clothes, their faces carved from stone. Chidi sat at the defendant's table, looking thinner than she remembered, his designer suit hanging slightly loose. When their eyes met across the courtroom, something passed between them. Not love, not even hate, but a kind of mutual acknowledgement that they destroyed each other in different ways. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Justice Adebisi, called the court to order. "We're here for preliminary motions in Okonkwo versus Okafor. Counsel, proceed." Chidi's lawyer, a slick Lagos attorney named Bola Ogundipe, stood up. "Your Honor, my client has been subjected to a malicious campaign of character assassination. Miss Okafor has used social media, press conferences, and coordinated attacks to destroy my client's reputation, livelihood, and family standing. We're seeking 50 million naira in damages and an injunction preventing her from making further defamatory statements." Folklore rose, her voice steady and clear. "Your Honor, the defense submits that truth is an absolute defense to defamation. Every statement Miss Okafor has made about Mr. Okonkwo's behavior, the wedding humiliation, the business sabotage, the harassment, is documented and verifiable. Furthermore, Mr. Okonkwo's own actions, including his current EFCC investigation for financial crimes, support Miss Okafor's claims about his character." "Objection!" Ogundipe shouted. "The EFCC investigation is not relevant to this defamation case." "It's completely relevant," Folklore countered. "It establishes a pattern of unethical behavior that corroborates my client's testimony." Justice Adebisi raised her hand for silence. "I'll review the evidence submitted by both parties and issue a ruling on whether this case has sufficient merit to proceed to trial. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks." It should have ended there, a routine procedural hearing. But as the judge prepared to dismiss court, Chidi stood up. "Your Honor, may I address the court?" Ogundipe grabbed his arm. "I advise against. I need to speak." Chidi's voice was loud enough to echo through the room. Justice Adebisi looked surprised but nodded. "You may make a brief statement." Chidi turned to face Amara directly, ignoring his lawyer's frantic whispers. "Amara, I know you're never going to forgive me. I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to understand something." His voice cracked. "I loved you. In my broken, twisted way, I loved you. And when you walked away, it felt like you were telling the world that I wasn't good enough, that my money, my family name, everything I'd been raised to believe made me valuable, meant nothing." The courtroom was silent. Amara's heart pounded. "So I tried to destroy you," Chidi continued. "Not because I'm evil, though I know that's how you see me, but because I couldn't accept that you were stronger than me, that you were better than me. And you are, Amara. You are everything I pretended to be, brave, principled, genuine. I'm sorry. For all of it." For one surreal moment, Amara almost believed him. Almost felt the ghost of what they'd been to each other before money and power poisoned everything. Then Chidi's expression changed, hardened, and she realized this wasn't contrition. This was theater. "But here's the truth," he said, his voice dropping to something cold and calculated. "You won. You destroyed my family's business, our reputation, everything we built. And I accept that I deserve it. But you made one mistake, Amara. You forgot that I know all your secrets too." Folklore jumped up. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular." "You think you're so righteous," Chidi talked over her. "But should we discuss how you got the seed money for your business? How Mr. Nwosu didn't just invest, he paid you. For what, exactly? Should we talk about the private meetings, the hotel visits?" Amara felt the blood drain from her face. It was a lie, A disgusting, calculated lie, but said in open court, it would spread like wildfire. "That's defamatory," Folklore shouted. "Your Honor, I move for sanctions." But the damage was done. Reporters were already typing furiously. Cameras flashed. Whispers rippled through the courtroom. Justice Adebisi slammed her gavel. "Mr. Okonkwo, you will be silent or be held in contempt. These accusations are inappropriate and unsubstantiated." "Are they?" Chidi pulled out his phone, holding it up. "I have bank records. Transfers from Nwosu Holdings to Amara Okafor's personal account, not her business account. Large sums. Regular payments. What were those payments for, Amara? What services did you provide?" Mr. Nwosu stood up, his face dark with rage. Those payments were documented personal loans to help her move to Lagos and establish herself while waiting for the formal business investment to process. Every naira is accounted for with loan agreements signed by both parties and scheduled for repayment. This is a desperate attempt to manufacture scandal where none exists. Then why were they sent to her personal account? Chidi pressed, his voice rising. "Why the secrecy?" "There was no secrecy." Amara's voice rang out before Folklore could stop her. "Mr. Nwosu helped me when I had nothing, not because I was sleeping with him, but because he believed in my vision. Those loans have full documentation, interest schedules, and repayment terms. You're trying to turn generosity into something dirty because that's all you understand." Justice Adebisi's gavel cracked like thunder. "Enough. Mr. Okonkwo, you are now in contempt of court. Bailiff, remove him from this courtroom. This hearing is adjourned pending my review of all evidence, including documentation of any financial arrangements between Miss Okafor and Mr. Nwosu." Court dismissed. The bailiffs moved toward Chidi, but he was already backing away, his eyes fixed on Amara with something like triumph. He'd accomplished what he wanted, planted doubt, created scandal, given the press a new angle. As they escorted him out, he called over his shoulder, "Check your phone, Amara. I sent you something you need to see." The courtroom erupted into chaos. Reporters rushed toward Amara, shouting questions about Mr. Nwosu, the loans, their relationship. Her security detail formed a barrier while Folklore and Mr. Nwosu hustled her toward a side exit. In the car, Amara's hands shook as she pulled out her phone. A message from Chidi's number, sent 5 minutes ago. A video file. "Don't open it," Folklore warned. "It could be revenge porn, doctored footage. I need to know what he's threatening me with." Amara pressed play. The video was security footage from the hotel where she'd stayed during her first week in Lagos 3 years ago, before she and Chidi had gotten serious. It showed her entering an elevator with Mr. Nwosu, both of them smiling, clearly coming from a business dinner. The timestamp was late, 11:47 p.m. Then it cut to them exiting the elevator on the same floor, Mr. Nwosu walking her to her room, a brief conversation at her door, him leaving. Nothing happened. It was completely innocent. But edited together, time-stamped, with ominous music added, it looked suspicious. The caption read, "The Real Sugar Daddy, How Amara Okafor Really Built Her Empire." "He's going to release this," Amara whispered. "He's going to destroy my reputation by implying something that never happened." Mr. Nwosu's face was grim. "My wife will see this. My children. My business partners. Even though nothing occurred, the implication alone could damage my marriage and my reputation." "I'm so sorry." "This isn't your fault," he cut her off firmly. "This is what predators do when they're cornered. They weaponize innocence." Folklore was already on the phone with her legal team. "We'll get an injunction preventing him from releasing that footage. We'll sue for invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress." "That takes time," Mr. Nwosu said quietly. "By the time we get an injunction, he'll have already leaked it to blogs and social media. The damage will be done." They sat in heavy silence as the car navigated Lagos traffic. Amara felt her carefully rebuilt life crumbling again. Every time she gained ground, Chidi found a new way to tear it down. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered without thinking. Amara. A woman's voice, cultured and cold. Adiz Okonkwo. I'm calling to make one final offer. My son has clearly lost his mind. This vendetta has consumed him. But I can still control what he does, for a price. What price? Drop all legal action against our family. Publicly retract your statements about us. Shut down your little victim advocacy and go back to Enugu quietly. In exchange, I will ensure that video never sees the light of day, the EFCC investigation quietly disappears, and you receive 10 million naira to start over somewhere far from Lagos. Amara's throat tightened. You're asking me to lie. To say everything he did was acceptable. To abandon the women who believed in me. I'm asking you to be practical. You've made your point. You've had your moment of feminist glory. But this is Nigeria, my dear. Power always wins in the end. Take the money and salvage what's left of your dignity before my son destroys you completely. And if I refuse? Then that video goes live in 1 hour. Mr. Nwosu's marriage implodes. Your reputation becomes permanently toxic, the woman who slept her way to success. Every graduate of your program becomes tainted by association. Every woman you've helped will be questioned about how she really earned her opportunity. Adiz's voice was ice. You have 1 hour to decide. Choose wisely. The line went dead. Folklore, who'd been listening on speaker, immediately started strategizing. We can get ahead of this. Release our own statement with the full context, the loan documents, testimonials from Mr. Nwosu's wife. My wife doesn't know I gave Amara those loans, Mr. Nwosu said quietly. Not because there was anything inappropriate, but because she's always been uncomfortable with me mentoring young women after a female employee accused me of harassment 15 years ago. The accusation was false, fully investigated and disproven, but the fear remained. If she sees that video without context, without me explaining first. He rubbed his face. My marriage is fragile right now. This could end it. I'm so sorry, Amara said again, tears streaming down her face. This is all my fault. I brought this destruction into your life. Stop, Mr. Nwosu commanded. Listen to me carefully. You did nothing wrong. Not at the wedding, not in building your business, not in fighting back. Chidi Okonkwo is a predator who's been enabled his entire life by a family that values power over people. This is not your fault. But I'm the reason you're being threatened. No. He's the reason. Never forget that. Mr. Nwosu straightened his shoulders. I'm going home to talk to my wife. I'm going to explain everything before that video can be released. She may forgive me for the secrecy, or she may not. But I won't let you sacrifice your truth to protect my comfort. What about the EFCC investigation? Folklore asked. Can Adiz really make that disappear? The Okonkwo family has deep connections, but the investigation has already uncovered too much. She's bluffing about that part. Folklore's expression was fierce. But she can release that video and cause real damage. We need to decide, do we let her win, or do we weather the storm? Amara looked at both of them, these people who'd believed in her when she was just a heartbroken woman with a dream. She thought about her graduates, about the women waiting to join her program, about her family in Enugu watching her fight. She thought about what surrender would mean, what message it would send. I spent 3 years of my life trying to be acceptable to Chidi and his family, Amara said slowly. Changing myself, shrinking myself, apologizing for my origins. Then I spent 3 months fighting to reclaim myself. I'm not going back to that cage. Not for 10 million naira. Not for anything. Folklore smiled grimly. Then we go to war? We go to war. They had 50 minutes to prepare. Folklore's team worked frantically, drafting statements, compiling documentation of the loans, preparing character witnesses. Mr. Nwosu called his wife, and Amara could hear the anguished conversation from the next room, his wife's shocked voice, his desperate explanations, her angry tears. 45 minutes after Adiz's call, Amara posted her own video. No professional editing, No strategic messaging. Just her, sitting in Mr. Nwosu's office, telling the truth. In 15 minutes, Chidi Okonkwo and his family planned to release a video suggesting I had an inappropriate relationship with my mentor and investor, Mr. Emeka Nwosu. They're doing this because I refused to drop my legal case against them for harassment and fraud. I refused to take their money and disappear quietly. So now they're trying to destroy the reputation of a man whose only crime was helping a woman who had nothing. She held up the loan documents on camera, showing the signatures, the repayment schedule, the business terms. These are the facts. Mr. Nwosu gave me personal loans, properly documented, with interest, to help me relocate to Lagos while my business funding was being processed. There was nothing inappropriate about our relationship. But the Okonkwo family doesn't care about facts. They care about power and control and punishing anyone who dares to say no to them. Amara looked directly into the camera. So release your video, Chidi. Do your worst. I'm done being afraid of you. I'm done letting your family weaponize lies against good people. And to every woman watching who's being threatened, manipulated, or terrorized by a powerful man, you are not alone. We are stronger than their money. We are louder than their threats. And we will not be silenced. She posted the video and waited. At exactly 6 p.m., Chidi's video went live on 3 different gossip blogs simultaneously. The edited security footage, the implications, the manufactured scandal, all of it designed to destroy her credibility. For 3 hours, Amara watched her phone explode with reactions. Some people believed Chidi's narrative. Some called her a hypocrite, a liar, a user. The comments were vicious, personal, cruel. But something else happened too. Mr. Nwosu's wife, Chinyu, posted her own statement. I am Emeka Nwosu's wife of 32 years. I was hurt and confused when I learned about these loans today, not because my husband did anything wrong, but because he felt he couldn't tell me. After reviewing the documentation and speaking with him at length, I believe completely in his integrity and in Amara Okafor's story. The Okonkwo family's attempt to manufacture a sex scandal out of mentorship is disgusting. I stand with my husband and with Amara. Then the dam broke again, but this time in Amara's favor. Dozens of businesswomen across Nigeria shared their own stories of male mentors who'd helped them professionally and were later accused of inappropriate behavior when those women became successful. The president of Nigeria's Women in Business Association released a statement condemning the weaponization of false sexual allegations to silence female entrepreneurs. 3 major companies announced they were cutting ties with Okonkwo Enterprises pending the outcome of the EFCC investigation. 2 banks froze the family's credit lines. Chidi's father, Chief Okonkwo, suffered a mild heart attack and was hospitalized, the stress finally breaking his 70-year-old body. And through it all, from village to victory's application numbers surged. Women wanted to join a program led by someone who'd refused to be broken, who'd fought back against power, who'd chosen truth over comfort. But late that night, as Amara finally allowed herself to collapse in exhaustion, Ngozi burst into her hotel room with news that changed everything. Chidi's gone. What do you mean gone? He violated his travel ban. Somehow got to the airport and boarded a flight to Dubai. He's fled the country. Amara felt a strange mix of relief and unfinished rage. So he just escapes? After everything? Not exactly. Ngozi pulled up a news article on her phone. Nigeria has an extradition treaty with the UAE for financial crimes. The EFCC has already filed for his return. Plus, he left behind his mother and father to face the consequences of the business fraud. Adiz has been arrested for her role in the land fraud scheme against your father. They arrested her? An hour ago. Your father's case gave prosecutors the evidence they needed to move on the family. Chief Okonkwo is too sick to be charged right now, but Adiz is facing multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and corruption. Amara should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt empty. I never wanted this. I just wanted him to leave me alone. I know. But sometimes justice looks different than we imagined. Ngozi sat beside her. You didn't destroy the Okonkwo family, Amara. They destroyed themselves. You just refused to be their victim. 3 days later, Justice Adebisi dismissed Chitty's defamation lawsuit with prejudice, meaning it could never be refiled. She included a scathing rebuke in her written judgment. This court finds that Mr. Okonkwo's lawsuit was filed in bad faith as part of a continued campaign of harassment against the defendant. His behavior in court, including making unsubstantiated allegations and subsequently fleeing the country, demonstrates a pattern of abuse of the legal system. Amara's counter-lawsuit for harassment and tortious interference moved forward. With Chitty gone and Adiz facing criminal charges, the family's legal team quietly approached Folklore with a settlement offer, 20 million naira and a public apology. "Take it," Mr. Nwosu advised. "You've won, Amara. Take the money, rebuild your business stronger, and move forward." But before Amara could respond, one final message arrived from Chitty, sent from a burner phone in Dubai. "You won. Congratulations. I hope your victory keeps you warm at night when you realize you're just like me, willing to destroy families to get what you want. We're the same, Amara. We just wear different masks." Amara read the message 3 times, feeling something cold settle in her chest. Were they the same? Had her fight for justice become its own kind of cruelty? She looked at the settlement offer, at the apology her lawyers had drafted for the Okonkwo family to sign, at the empire of pain she'd built in the name of dignity. And she had to make one final choice. Who did she want to be when the war finally ended? The answer would surprise everyone, including herself. Have you ever questioned if fighting back made you like your oppressor? Comment your thoughts. Subscribe now. The final chapter will leave you speechless. What will Amara choose? Amara sat in the conference room of Adeyemi and Partners. The settlement agreement spread before her like a judgment. 20 million naira. A public apology. Legal vindication. Everything she'd fought for, summarized in 12 pages of legal text. Folklore and Mr. Nwosu waited for her signature, their expressions cautiously optimistic. They'd worked tirelessly for 7 months to reach this moment. They deserved to celebrate. But Amara couldn't pick up the pen. "What's wrong?" Folklore asked gently. "This is a complete victory." "Is it?" Amara's voice was barely a whisper. "Chief Okonkwo is in the hospital with a weak heart. Adiz is facing prison. Their businesses are collapsing. Their family name is destroyed. And Chitty is hiding in Dubai like a refugee." She looked up at them. "I wanted justice. But this feels like annihilation." "They tried to annihilate you first," Mr. Nwosu reminded her. "Don't forget that." "I haven't forgotten. But Chitty's message keeps replaying in my head. He said we're the same. And maybe." "You are nothing like him," Folklore interrupted firmly. "He attacked you to maintain power and control. You defended yourself to survive and help others. There's no moral equivalence, Amara. But look at the body count. His father's health destroyed. His mother facing years in prison. Employees of Okonkwo Enterprises losing jobs as the company downsizes. I didn't mean for all that to happen. You're not responsible for the consequences of their crimes," Mr. Nwosu said. "The EFCC investigation uncovered years of fraud and corruption. You didn't create that corruption. You simply refused to be its victim." Ngozi, who'd been silent until now, spoke up from the corner. "Amara, can I share something? Last week, I visited your program's office. There were 47 women in the waiting room, hoping to join your next cohort. I talked to some of them. They came from all over Nigeria, from villages and small towns where they'd been told they weren't good enough for the city. They came because they'd heard about a woman who refused to be broken by a powerful family. Your fight gave them hope. But at what cost? At the cost of teaching powerful people they can't crush whoever they want without consequences," Ngozi countered. "Amara, you're not perfect. This situation isn't black and white. But you're not the villain here. Not even close." Amara looked at the settlement agreement again. The public apology was particularly detailed. The Okonkwo family would have to acknowledge Chitty's harassment, admit to the sabotage attempts, and formally withdraw all claims against her. It would be published in 3 major newspapers. It would be the final, definitive statement of her vindication. But it would also be the final humiliation for a family already brought low. Can I make a counteroffer? Amara asked suddenly. To the settlement terms? Folklore looked surprised. What kind of counteroffer? I want the money reduced to 5 million naira, just enough to cover my legal costs and compensate me for the business disruption. The rest, the 15 million, goes into a fund for the employees being laid off from Okonkwo Enterprises. People who had nothing to do with their employer's crimes shouldn't suffer because of this fight. Amara. And I want the apology to be private, not public. Delivered directly to me, in writing, signed by Adiz and whatever family members are still functioning. Not published in newspapers for the world to mock. Mr. Nwosu leaned back, studying her. Why? Because I don't need the world to see them humiliated. I just need them to acknowledge what they did to me. I need the truth documented, not the spectacle. Amara met his gaze. Chidi said we're the same. I want to prove we're not. He used his power to destroy. I want to use mine to rebuild, even for his family's innocent employees. Folklore was quiet for a long moment. That's remarkably gracious given what they put you through. It's not grace. It's boundaries. I'm drawing a line between justice and revenge. Justice is getting compensation and an apology. Revenge is making sure everyone knows how completely I destroyed them. Amara picked up the pen. I choose justice. What if they refuse the new terms? Then we take them to trial and let a judge decide. But I think Adiz is smart enough to recognize genuine mercy when it's offered. They sent the counteroffer that afternoon. 2 days later, the Okonkwo family's lawyer called. They accepted. 1 week after that, Amara sat in a private room at a neutral location, a law office in Ikeja, waiting for the apology. Only Folklore accompanied her. No press, no witnesses, no drama. The door opened. Adiz Okonkwo entered, flanked by her lawyer. She looked 10 years older than the proud woman who'd tried to bribe Amara months ago. Her expensive clothes hung loose on a frame thinned by stress. Her eyes were hollow. They sat across from each other in charged silence. Adiz's lawyer placed a document on the table. The written apology, as agreed. Amara read it carefully. It was thorough, specific, and genuinely remorseful, or at least, written to appear so. It acknowledged Chidi's behavior at the wedding, the subsequent harassment, the sabotage of her business, the threats to her family, and the false allegations about her relationship with Mr. Nwosu. This is acceptable, Amara said quietly. Adiz signed it, her hand trembling slightly. Then she looked up at Amara, and for the first time, there was no superiority in her expression. Only exhaustion. Why did you reduce the settlement? Why did you agree to keep the apology private? Because I didn't fight you to destroy you. I fought you to survive. You succeeded. My family is finished. Your family is facing consequences for decades of corruption, Amara corrected gently. That's not my doing. That's yours. Adiz's eyes flashed with old anger, then dimmed again. Do you know what's funny? I thought I was protecting my son, teaching him to be strong, to never show weakness, to use our power to get what we wanted. I thought I was preparing him for the world. Her voice cracked. Instead, I created a monster who couldn't handle rejection. He's not a monster. He's a man who never learned accountability because everyone around him enabled his worst impulses. Amara paused. Including you. And now I'm paying for it. My husband may not survive his heart condition. I'm facing prison time. My son is a fugitive. Everything we built is gone. Adiz looked directly at her. Are you satisfied? No, Amara admitted. Because this didn't need to happen. If Chidi had just let me go after the wedding, if you'd respected my choice to walk away, none of this would have occurred. You chose escalation at every turn. I just refused to be destroyed by it. They sat in silence for another moment. Then Adiz stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. For what it's worth, I watched some of the interviews your program graduates gave. The women you've helped. You've done good work, Amara. Real work. The kind that actually matters. Her voice was barely audible. I wish my son had been worthy of you. After she left, Folklore released a long breath. That was the saddest thing I've ever witnessed. It was necessary, Amara said simply. With the settlement finalized, From Village to Victory expanded rapidly. The employee fund she negotiated provided jobs for 12 of the laid-off Okonkwo Enterprises workers. She hired them as trainers, mentors, and administrators for her growing program. They brought valuable corporate experience and, more importantly, they became living proof that second chances were possible. 6 months after the settlement, Amara moved the program into a proper building in Yaba, 3 floors, 12 classrooms, office space for 20 staff members. They were training 200 women per quarter now, with a 92% job placement rate. Companies across Nigeria competed to hire her graduates. Mr. Nwosu's investment had been repaid in full, with interest. He remained on her advisory board but stepped back from daily involvement, focusing on repairing his marriage. He and Chinyu were doing better, trust rebuilt slowly but genuinely. The media occasionally asked Amara about Chidi, about whether she'd comment on his life in Dubai. She always declined. He tried to reach out twice, once through a mutual friend, once through a carefully worded email, but she'd blocked both attempts. Some chapters needed to close completely. But one afternoon, Ngozi burst into her office with news that made Amara's carefully constructed peace waver. Chidi's coming back to Nigeria. What? Why? His father died. Yesterday, in the hospital. The funeral is next week. Ngozi hesitated. And apparently, Chidi's negotiated with the EFCC. He's turning himself in, cooperating with their investigation in exchange for reduced charges. He'll face trial here. Amara sat down heavily. Chief Okonkwo dead. Chidi returning to face judgment. The story that had consumed her life was entering its final act. Are you going to the funeral? Ngozi asked carefully. No. That's not my place. Will you see him? If he requests to meet. Amara thought about that question for a long time. Part of her wanted closure, wanted to look Chidi in the eye one final time and see if he'd truly changed or just learned to fake humility. Part of her wanted nothing to do with him ever again. I don't know, she admitted finally. I honestly don't know. 3 days before the funeral, Amara received a handwritten letter, delivered by courier. The handwriting was immediately recognizable. Chidi's elegant script, the same writing that had once filled love notes and birthday cards. Dear Amara, my father died believing I destroyed our family's honor. His last words to me were, "You had everything and threw it away for pride." He was talking about me, but he could have been talking about himself. We Okonkwos have been throwing away everything for pride for generations. I'm coming home to face trial for my crimes. My lawyer says I'll likely serve 5 to 7 years for the financial fraud charges, possibly more if they pursue the harassment case. I deserve it. I deserve all of it. I know I have no right to ask anything of you. But if you can find it in yourself to meet with me once before the trial begins, I would be grateful. Not to apologize again. You've heard enough hollow apologies from me. But to listen. To whatever you need to say to me to finally be free of this nightmare we created together. I've spent a year in Dubai thinking about what you said at the courthouse. About dignity versus pride. About strength versus power. About how true love doesn't demand that you shrink yourself. I understand now, too late, that I never actually loved you. I loved the idea of you, the beautiful village girl who made me feel magnanimous. But I never loved the real you, the strong you, the you who could walk away. If there's anything I regret more than the pain I caused, it's that I never got to know the real Amara Okafor. The warrior. The builder. The woman who refused to stay broken. Respectfully, Chidi. Amara read the letter 3 times, then showed it to Ngozi. Are you going to meet him? I don't know. Should I? That's not my decision, Amara. But ask yourself this. What do you need from him? And if you can't get it from a meeting, is there any point? Amara thought about that question for 2 days. She prayed about it, talked to her mother about it, even consulted with Folklore about the legal implications. Finally, she made her decision. She would meet Chitty one last time. Not for his closure, but for hers. Because the woman who'd walked out of that wedding deserved to face the man who'd tried to break her and show him exactly how strong she'd become. What would you say to someone who tried to destroy you? Comment below. Subscribe now, the final confrontation is next, and you won't believe how this ends. Will Amara get real closure? They met on neutral ground, a quiet cafe in Lekki, mid-morning on a Tuesday when the lunch crowd hadn't yet arrived. Amara brought Folklore and her security detail but asked them to wait outside. This conversation needed to happen without an audience. Chitty arrived exactly on time, flanked by 2 EFCC officials who'd escorted him from the airport. He'd been allowed this one meeting before beginning his pre-trial custody. He looked different, thinner, his designer clothes replaced with simple jeans and a button-down shirt. His usual arrogance had been stripped away, leaving something raw and uncertain. They sat across from each other at a corner table, the silence heavy between them. "Thank you for coming," Chitty started. "I know you didn't have to." "I didn't come for you," Amara said clearly. "I came for myself. To close this chapter completely." He nodded, accepting that. "What do you need from me?" "I need to understand why. Not the surface reasons. I know you felt rejected, embarrassed, angry. But why did you need to destroy me specifically? Why couldn't you just let me go?" Chitty was quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. "Because you were the first person who ever made me feel like I wasn't enough. My whole life, people wanted things from me. Money, connections, status. But you wanted me to be better. To be genuine. And when I showed you who I really was at that wedding, you walked away. You chose your dignity over my wealth. And that felt like a fundamental rejection of everything I'd been taught to value. So you tried to prove I was wrong to walk away. I tried to prove you were nothing without me. That your pride was foolish, that you'd fail and come crawling back. But you didn't fail. You built something real, something meaningful. And that made me angrier because it meant—" He paused, his voice cracking. "It meant I was the one who wasn't enough. Not my money, not my family name. Just me. I was the insufficient one." Amara felt an unexpected pang of something almost like pity. Almost. "You destroyed your family's legacy trying to prove you were superior to a village girl who rejected you." "I know. The irony isn't lost on me." Chitty looked up at her, his eyes red-rimmed. "My father spent 40 years building our wealth through corruption and shortcuts. I spent 1 year destroying it through ego and cruelty. We were both teaching masterclasses in how power corrupts. Is this real, Chitty? This remorse? Or is this another manipulation?" "I don't know anymore," he admitted. "In Dubai, I had a year to think with no distractions, no enablers, no family telling me I was right. I saw myself clearly for the first time. Saw how my mother's lessons about using power, my father's lessons about never showing weakness, my whole upbringing had created someone fundamentally broken. But I don't know if I'm actually changing or if I'm just performing remorse because it's the only card I have left to play." The honesty was startling. Amara had expected either continued hostility or manipulative apologetic. This uncertainty, this admission of not knowing his own motivations, it felt real. Or maybe she just wanted it to feel real so this story could have a redemptive ending. "What happens now?" she asked. "You face trial, you serve time. Then what?" "I don't know. I've been thinking about it constantly. My family's businesses are gone. My reputation is destroyed. My father's dead. My mother's in prison. I have no money. The EFCC seized everything. I'll be nearly 40 when I get out of prison." He laughed bitterly. The privileged Lagos boy reduced to nothing. "Your revenge is complete." "It was never about revenge," Amara said firmly. "It was about survival and justice." "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because from where I'm sitting, the outcome looks the same. The outcome is the consequence of your choices, Chitty. Not my vindictiveness. I didn't commit fraud. I didn't harass anyone. I didn't fabricate evidence or threaten families. I just refused to disappear quietly. She leaned forward. You keep trying to make us equivalent. Like we're both victims of some tragic circumstance. But we're not. You had every advantage and chose cruelty. I had nothing and chose dignity. We're not the same. I know, he whispered. I know we're not. They sat in silence for another moment. Then Chitty reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. This is the ring you threw at my feet. My mother kept it, tried to sell it when we needed money. I bought it back before I left Dubai. I wanted to return it to you properly. Amara looked at the box but didn't take it. I don't want it. Please. It's not about us. It's about closure. About completing the circle. You walked away from this ring and everything it represented. You should be the one to decide what happens to it now. Reluctantly, Amara took the box. Inside, the 3-carat diamond glinted under the cafe's lights, a symbol of a future that had never existed except in fantasy. What do you want me to do with it? Whatever you want. Sell it, throw it in the lagoon, keep it as a reminder of your strength. I don't care. It's yours. Amara closed the box and put it in her bag. She'd figure out what to do with it later. Maybe she'd sell it and put the money towards scholarships for her program. Maybe she'd keep it as a reminder that she'd once been naive enough to believe love could exist without respect. Is there anything else you need to say? She asked. Chitty hesitated. Just, thank you. For reducing the settlement. For not making the apology public. For the employee fund. You didn't have to show mercy, but you did. I didn't do it for you. I did it because I wanted to prove to myself that fighting back hadn't turned me cruel. That I could seek justice without becoming vindictive. Did it work? Do you feel at peace? Amara considered that question honestly. Did she feel at peace? After 7 months of legal battles, death threats, character assassination, and emotional warfare? After watching a family implode and a man lose everything? I feel finished, she said finally. Not at peace exactly, but finished. This story doesn't own me anymore. I'm not the woman who walked out of that wedding. I'm someone new, someone stronger. And you're just part of the journey that created her. Chitty nodded slowly. I hope you build something beautiful with your life, Amara. Something that eclipses all of this ugliness. I already am. They stood simultaneously, and for one surreal moment, Amara wondered if he would try to hug her, to force some kind of reconciliation moment. But he just extended his hand formally. She shook it once, briefly, then walked away. At the door, she turned back one final time. Chitty sat at the table, his head in his hands, the EFCC officials moving to collect him. He looked small, defeated, human. Not a monster. Not a villain. Just a broken man facing the consequences of his choices. Amara felt no satisfaction in his brokenness, but no guilt either. He'd had every opportunity to choose differently, and at each crossroads, he'd chosen cruelty. This ending was his own making. She walked out into the bright Lego sunshine, where Folake and Ngozi waited. How do you feel? Ngozi asked carefully. Free, Amara said, surprised to realize it was true. Finally, completely free. 3 months later, Chitty's trial began. Amara didn't attend, but she followed the news coverage. He pleaded guilty to all charges, fraud, corruption, harassment, and received a sentence of 8 years with possibility of parole after 5 for good behavior. Adiz received 6 years for her role in the land fraud scheme. The Okonkwo family's fall from grace was complete. Their story became a cautionary tale told in business schools and women's advocacy groups. What happens when entitlement meets accountability? But Amara's story became something else entirely. From village to victory expanded to 3 cities: Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. They trained over 800 women in the first full year of operations. Graduation ceremonies were held quarterly, and Amara made sure to attend every single one, shaking hands with each graduate, hearing their stories, celebrating their futures. The ring Chitty had returned sat in her desk drawer for weeks until Amara finally decided its fate. She had it appraised. It was worth 4.2 million naira. She sold it and used the money to create the Second Chances Scholarship Fund for women escaping abusive relationships who wanted to join her program but couldn't afford it. She never told anyone where the seed money came from. It seemed fitting that the symbol of her almost marriage would fund the freedom of other women. Mr. Nwosu's marriage to Chinyu had healed and strengthened. They occasionally visited the program together, Chinyu now actively involved in fundraising and advocacy. She'd become one of Amara's fiercest champions and closest friends. Amara's family thrived. Her father's farm not only survived but expanded. The publicity from the Okonkwo case had brought attention to land fraud schemes across Nigeria, resulting in stronger protections for small farmers. Her brother Kelechi started university studying agricultural business, dreaming of modernizing their family farm. Her mother began a small tailoring business, making uniforms for From Village to Victory graduates. But it was a quiet evening 18 months after the settlement that brought Amara's journey full circle. She was working late at her Lagos office, reviewing applications for the next cohort, when she received an unexpected visitor. The receptionist buzzed up, "There's a young woman here who says it's urgent. Her name is Adana Okonkwo." Amara's heart stopped. Okonkwo. She hadn't heard that name spoken in her office since the settlement. "Send her up." The girl who entered was perhaps 19 or 20, with Chitty's eyes but softer features, less arrogance in her bearing. She wore simple clothes and carried herself with hesitation rather than entitlement. "I'm Adana," she said quietly. "Chitty's younger sister. We've never met. I was studying abroad during everything that happened. Please, sit." Amara gestured to a chair, her mind racing. "What can I do for you?" "I came to apologize. I know you don't need another Okonkwo apology, and I know I wasn't directly involved, but I'm still part of the family that hurt you. And I'm ashamed." Adana's voice trembled. "I grew up worshipping my big brother, thinking he was perfect. Finding out what he did to you, to other women, what my parents enabled. It shattered everything I believed about my family. That must have been difficult. I dropped out of university in London when the news broke. I couldn't face my classmates knowing what my family had done. I've been back in Nigeria for 6 months, trying to figure out who I am separate from the Okonkwo name." She looked up at Amara with tears in her eyes. "I want to join your program." Amara was stunned. "You want to? What?" "I have a university degree, but I don't have practical skills. I don't have confidence. I don't even know how to exist in the world without my family's money and influence. Everything I am was built on corruption and cruelty. I want to rebuild myself into someone decent. Someone useful." Adana pulled out an application form, already filled out. "I know you have every right to refuse me. I know my presence might be painful. But I'm asking anyway because your program represents everything my family wasn't: integrity, empowerment, genuine help rather than manipulation." Amara took the application, scanning it. Adana had been honest about her family background, about her brother's crimes, about everything. She'd listed her skills as minimal, and her financial situation as uncertain, living on part-time work since family assets were seized. "Why do you really want to join?" Amara asked. "Is this guilt? Penance?" "It's survival," Adana said simply. "I'm 20 years old. I have no family support, no network, no financial cushion. I'm exactly like the women you help, except I got here through my family's downfall rather than poverty. But the end result is the same. I need someone to teach me how to make it on my own merit." Amara looked at this girl, this young woman who bore her oppressor's name but not his cruelty. She thought about cycles of pain and cycles of healing. She thought about mercy versus justice, about boundaries versus grudges. "If I accept you into the program," Amara said carefully, "it won't be easy. Other participants will know who you are. They may resent you. They may make your time here difficult. I understand. And I can't give you special treatment. I can't protect you from the consequences of your family's reputation. You'll have to earn respect just like everyone else. I wouldn't want it any other way. Amara was quiet for a long moment. Every instinct screamed that this was too complicated, too risky, too painful. But another voice, quieter but stronger, reminded her why she'd started this program in the first place. To help women rebuild. To offer second chances. To prove that origins don't determine destinations. You're accepted, Amara said finally. The next cohort starts in 3 weeks. Be prepared to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. Adana's face crumpled with relief. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you graduate and build something meaningful with what you learn here. After Adana left, Ngozi emerged from where she'd been eavesdropping in the hallway. Are you sure about this? Taking in a Okonkwo. I'm sure, Amara said. Because if I let hatred decide who deserves help, I become what they were. And I refuse to let them have that much power over who I am. 6 months later, Amara stood on stage at the graduation ceremony for her largest cohort yet. 73 women from across Nigeria, all dressed in the green and gold Ankara uniforms her mother had designed. They'd completed 12 weeks of intensive training and now held job offers from companies throughout Lagos. Among them, near the back row, stood Adana Okonkwo. She'd struggled initially. Other participants recognized her name and kept their distance. But gradually, through consistent hard work and genuine humility, she'd earned cautious acceptance. She'd excelled in the program, particularly in conflict resolution and restorative justice training, perhaps because she understood firsthand the cost of unchecked power. As Amara called each graduate forward to receive their certificates, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. The wedding she'd walked away from. The man who'd tried to destroy her. The family that had weaponized their power against her dignity. The choice to fight back, to build rather than surrender. She thought about Chidi, serving his sentence in Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison. She'd heard through Folake that he'd been a model prisoner, teaching financial literacy classes to other inmates, apparently trying to rebuild some kind of legacy from ruins. She wondered if people could truly change or if they just learned to live with who they'd always been. She didn't know. But she knew this. She'd changed. The frightened woman who'd fled that ballroom had become someone capable of mercy without weakness, justice without cruelty, strength without hardness. When Adana's name was called, the applause was sparse, many attendees still uncomfortable with her presence. But Amara hugged her anyway, publicly, deliberately. Because forgiveness didn't require forgetting, and growth didn't require ignoring the past. After the ceremony, Amara's mother found her backstage, tears streaming down her face. Your grandmother would be so proud. You've become the lion I always knew you were. I learned from you, Mama. You never let poverty steal your dignity. You never let hardship steal your kindness. You showed me that strength doesn't come from power, it comes from principle. That evening, Amara returned to her apartment, a modest but comfortable space in Yaba, far from the luxury she might have had as Chidi's wife, but earned through her own work. She made tea and sat on her balcony, watching Lagos pulse with its chaotic energy below. Her phone buzzed. An email from an address she didn't recognize. Subject line, "Thank you." She opened it hesitantly. Amara, I don't expect you to respond to this. I'm writing from prison on a monitored email system, so this will be brief. I heard you accepted Adana into your program. I also heard she graduated today. My sister sent me a photo, she's smiling in it, genuinely smiling. I haven't seen her look that happy since before our family's fall. You didn't have to help her. After everything I did to you, you would have been justified in turning her away, in making her pay for my sins. But you chose mercy instead. You chose to see her as separate from me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that your kindness to my sister has taught me more about genuine strength than anything else in my life. You've shown me what I could have been if I'd chosen differently. I have 4 more years in here to think about that. 4 more years to try to become someone worthy of the mercy you've shown. I hope you build an empire of good, Amara. You deserve every success. Amara read the email twice, then closed her laptop. She didn't respond. Some conversations were meant to end, some chapters meant to close. But she saved the email in a folder labeled Journey, alongside photos from her graduations, testimonials from her students, and the original business plan she'd written in her childhood bedroom in Enugu. Evidence of the distance traveled. Proof that walking away had been the right choice. 5 years later, From Village to Victory operated in 12 Nigerian cities and had expanded into Ghana and Kenya. Amara had been featured in Forbes Africa's 30 Under 30 list and had delivered a TEDx talk titled The Power of Walking Away that went viral with 20 million views. She never married. She dated occasionally, cautiously, always maintaining fierce independence. She learned to recognize red flags early and had no patience for men who needed her to shrink to feel large. Her program had graduated over 3,000 women. 87% maintained employment 2 years post-graduation. 12 had started their own businesses. 3 had run for local political office. 1, a graduate from the second cohort, now worked as Amara's operations director. Adana Okonkwo became a restorative justice advocate, working with families affected by corporate crime. She'd legally changed her last name to her mother's maiden name, Nwik, determined to build an identity separate from the weight of her family's legacy. Chidi was released on parole after 5.5 years for good behavior. Amara heard he moved to a small town in Anambra State, worked as an accountant for a non-profit, and lived quietly. He never tried to contact her again after that one email. She was grateful for his silence. Adiz served her full 6-year sentence. Upon release, she wrote a book about power, privilege, and the price of enabling cruelty in children. It became a bestseller among Nigerian mothers grappling with raising boys in a culture that conflated dominance with masculinity. She donated all proceeds to From Village to Victory. Amara accepted the donation after careful consideration, with one condition. It would fund a new program teaching young men about healthy masculinity, emotional intelligence, and respect. Heal the next generation, she told Adiz during their brief meeting, so they don't become what your son was. 10 years after the wedding that never was, Amara stood in the presidential villa in Abuja, receiving the National Award for Social Impact Innovation. The president, a woman who'd won office partly on a platform of empowering female entrepreneurs, personally presented the medal. You've changed thousands of lives, the president said. You've proven that one woman's courage can shift an entire culture's conversation about power and dignity. Amara accepted the award, gave a brief speech thanking her team, her family, and the women who'd trusted her program. She didn't mention Chidi. She didn't need to. He was a footnote in a much larger story, the story of what happens when women refuse to accept disrespect, when dignity becomes non-negotiable, when walking away becomes the first step toward revolution. That night, in her hotel room in Abuja, Amara allowed herself to reflect on the decade-long journey. The pain, the battles, the victories, the losses. The woman she'd been, desperate to be accepted by Lagos's elite, willing to dim her light to fit into someone else's vision. The woman she'd become, unapologetically powerful, fiercely independent, committed to lifting others as she climbed. She thought about the ring she'd thrown at Chidi's feet, now transformed into scholarships for abuse survivors. She thought about the public humiliation that had become the catalyst for her purpose. She thought about how the worst moment of her life had cracked her open and allowed something stronger to grow from the wreckage. She thought about the title people now called her, the woman who walked away. And she smiled, because she'd done so much more than walk away. She'd walked forward. Into power earned rather than borrowed. Into dignity defended rather than surrendered. Into a life built on her own terms with her own hands. The wedding that never happened had been a beginning, not an ending. And the story she was writing now, of women empowered, lives transformed, cycles broken, that story was still unfolding, chapter by chapter, woman by woman, choice by choice. Amara Okafor had walked out before saying, "I do," to a man who didn't deserve her. And in doing so, she'd said, "I will," to herself, to her future, to every woman who needed proof that walking away from disrespect was the first step toward everything better. That was the real wedding vow. the only one that mattered. Thank you so much for joining us on Amara's incredible journey. What did you think of her story? Did she make the right choices? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know which moment hit you the hardest. If this story moved you, please like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Echoes of Africa for more powerful stories of resilience, betrayal, and triumph. Turn on notifications so you never miss our next emotionally gripping tale. Where are you watching from? Comment your country and let's build a global community of storytelling. Remember, walking away from disrespect isn't giving up, it's choosing yourself. Stay strong, stay dignified, and keep building your empire.